mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Siri. Soy una abogada afrolatina licenciada y practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a seguir hablando de Sean Diddy Combs. Si quieren más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, today we're going to continue on in our discussion of, again, the man, the myth, the mogul, the legend, whatever it is you guys want to call him, Sean Diddy Combs. Last video, we discussed the entire fourth week of Diddy's trial, so it's only right that in this video, we discuss the entire fifth week of Diddy's trial, which continued on Monday, June 9th of 2025. As I stated in the last video, Jane was set to resume her direct examination testimony today, but in a surprising turn of events, Diddy's attorneys actually filed something yesterday on a Sunday. Do you guys remember witness Brianna Bongalong, the one who was testifying about some balcony incident where Diddy held her over a balcony allegedly? And do you remember how Nicole Westmoreland tore that woman to shreds during cross-examination? Well, over the weekend, Diddy's defense team filed their second motion for mistrial in this case. In it, they claim that the government knew that Brianna Bongalong was going to lie on the stand about that balcony incident. The court reconvened today, but instead of listening for the motion for mistrial because the government didn't have an opportunity to respond, the court said the show must go on, and so it did. The court said it would continue on in listening to the defense's argument for mistrial the next day, on Tuesday. So this Monday was to continue as if nothing was ever filed. Before we continue on in Jane's direct examination testimony, let me just give you my thoughts on Diddy's second motion for mistrial. I would just be extraordinarily surprised if the court granted it. I think the basis for which they cite in that motion is ridiculous. I don't think that the government can predict what a witness is going to say on the stand, point blank period. I'm sure the government met with Brianna, they talked to her about her prior statements, they talked to her about her testimony, and she probably said something different and got on the stand and got nervous and testified to something else. To try to hold that against the government and say that that warrants a mistrial is absolutely ludicrous. But we won't know until tomorrow what the court decides to do with it. Let's carry on in our continued direct examination of Jane. But before that, let me just tell you that Jane's testimony actually took us through most of this week. So in case you're wondering why I'm going so detailed about Jane's testimony, that's why. But anyways, let's carry on in what she said. When Jane continued on in her direct examination testimony that was led by AUSA Marine Comey, the government showed numerous text messages between Jane and Diddy. In one of those text messages, Diddy told Jane to send me some shit of you being a bad girl. Jane further explained during continued direct examination that when she was with Diddy, she was always fearful that he had video recordings of their hotel nights. I think it's important to note that Cassie referred to these nights as freak-offs, but Jane is referring to them as hotel nights. It's my understanding that they're one and the same. He just gave different titles depending on who he was dealing with. You know what was also really weird? Jane accused Diddy of wanting the videos of her in their hotel nights to use with other women. In more of the text messages between Jane and Diddy, Diddy sent Jane a text that said, "Just do what I please, I'm HORNY." There was even another text where Diddy texted Jane, "Stop it. Don't say no to me, please." Jane testified that even though she knew Diddy was recording their hotel nights, she had him buy a different cell phone just for the recordings because on his personal cell phone, all of his staff could access them. Jane testified that there was a podcast where Diddy was bragging about having sex with another woman for 48 hours straight, and that infuriated her. I'm not sure if I can insert a clip here, but I'm almost positive that the podcast she's referencing is Horatio Please. If you guys remember a few years back, when Horatio and Diddy first became a thing, they did a podcast together, and in that, they were bragging about all of their sexcapades. Jane further mentioned that during this podcast, Diddy mentioned a yacht excursion that he was actually supposed to take Jane on. and she was very upset about it. Jane said when she confronted Diddy about it, he downplayed it and acted like he wasn't sleeping with other women. In another one of the text messages that the prosecution showed, Jane told Diddy that she didn't want to be used for his hotel binges. When asked to clarify, Jane said she was coming to a realization of what this actually was, and she didn't want to be used for Diddy's sexual fantasies. In response to Jane's message about being used for his sexual fantasies, Diddy responded, "I'm tired of your false accusations." There was another really long text message that Jane sent Diddy explaining her frustration about being used in his hotel nights, and he responded, "Girl, stop. We'll talk later." Jane further clarified that she felt obligated to participate in these hotel nights because Diddy was paying for her rent, and should she choose to stop, her rent payments would also stop. Jane confirmed when asked that Diddy would say little guilt-trippy things about her house and about how he was the one paying for it. Jane said despite numerous times of her relentlessly telling Diddy that she didn't want to participate in hotel nights and how they made her feel, Diddy would just ignore those comments. In response to some of these messages, Jane mentioned that Diddy promised to take her on a proper date night in New York City with dinner, shopping, and no mention whatsoever of hotel nights. Jane testified that because of that, she visited Diddy on September 17th of 2023 in New York in hopes that they could spend some quality time together. However, Jane said that as soon as she got on the plane, she received a message from Diddy asking to arrange a hotel night. Jane said that the message said, "Just one if that's okay." And before she knew it, she was engaged in yet another hotel night with drugs, male escorts, and baby oil. Jane testified that that hotel night with that male entertainer didn't really go well, and for some reason she felt like she had to make up to Diddy for it. Jane then made an arrangement of her own to have another male entertainer that the two had used before come to New York City and engage in yet another hotel night. Jane said that she told the male entertainer about how he would be paid, which would be in some sort of envelope that would be at the front desk or something to that effect. The envelope would have cash inside, and Jane stated that she received that cash from none other than Diddy. Jane testified that a few days after that New York City trip, she met up with Diddy in Miami. Jane stated that on that Miami trip, Diddy insisted on watching footage from the New York City hotel night. Jane stated that Diddy wanted a part two, so they had that same male entertainer who had joined them in New York City a few days prior, join them again in Miami. Jane said that the very next month, in October of 2023, her and Diddy were arranging yet another hotel night, but she got super upset because she noticed one of Diddy's ex-girlfriends post him on social media. Jane claimed that after she saw this post, she texted Diddy, "You got that girl next to you, so you figure it out." Jane claimed that Diddy responded, "You're the only one that's going to put me at peace. Please." Jane claimed she then responded to Diddy, "Introduce her to P. It's not me that puts you at peace. It's the entertainment." For reference, P is one of the male entertainers that the pair had used previously for a hotel night. In another one of her text messages to Diddy, Jane told Diddy that she wasn't a porn star and she wasn't an animal, and Diddy responded that he would only make love to her. Jane responded to that message to Diddy by telling him that she's had sex with random strangers for the last 3 years, and she was tired of it. In response to that, Diddy said, "So we're breaking up? Question mark." When asked by the government, Jane confirmed that she didn't suggest the breakup because she didn't want it, but that's how Diddy responded regardless. Jane further confirmed a text message that happened on October 16th of 2023, when Diddy asked to see just her so they could spend time alone because that was his only day off. Jane responded that she rejected the proposal, telling Diddy to spend time with his ex or family because she just needed time to herself. Jane further testified that it really didn't matter how good of a night the pair was having. Diddy always wanted more. Jane said Diddy continued to text her after that, but at some point she just started ignoring his messages because she really did need time alone. And guess what he did when she did that? He sent her a screenshot of a message between he and his doctors showing that he was suffering from some medical something. Jane said at that point is when she responded because she was concerned about his health. Jane said after this exchange, her and Diddy actually arranged a sobriety party that took place on October 18th of 2023. Jane said she didn't take drugs at all during the sobriety party, but she ended up getting sick and throwing up after having sex with 2 more random men. Jane said when she told Diddy that she threw up, he said, "Okay, that's good. You'll feel better now. Let's go outside." Excuse me? She said after that little pep talk, she went back inside and had sex with a 3rd man. Unsurprisingly, Jane said at the end of the night she felt absolutely terrible. Jane said that after the sobriety party, she sent Diddy more text messages about how she felt used by him. But she also told the prosecution that she did send Diddy more text messages asking him to put money into her account, which I assume he did. Jane said that after continued arguments with Diddy about what happened at the sobriety party, he then offered to pay her rent for 3 months because of her frustrations. Jane further confirmed that she received a UTI and a yeast infection after all the men that she had sex with at the sobriety party. In further messages revealed by the government, Jane actually told Diddy that she was consenting to the taking of videos. And when the government asked her if that was true, she responded, "I'm still trying to figure that out." Jane testified that after learning about Cassie's lawsuit, she said to herself, "I can't believe that I'm reading my own story." Jane stated that after seeing the lawsuit, she texted Diddy, "What is this?" And he didn't respond for 2 full days. But when he eventually did, he said, "Call me on this phone. Important." Jane further testified that she didn't see Diddy in person for about 3 months after the filing of Cassie's lawsuit. Jane further stated that she texted Diddy, "Leave women alone. Stop trying to use women for your fetish. Hire prostitutes. These women don't want to do these hotel nights with you." And Diddy's response to that was rather interesting. According to Jane, Diddy responded, "This is fucking crazy. Are you setting me up? Are you recording our phone calls?" Jane responded to Diddy by telling him that he would never understand her, and by asking him yet again to stop calling her. When asked why she never told anyone about hotel nights, Jane responded, "Because it was a shameful and dark secret of mine." Jane further testified that on December 28th of 2023, her and Diddy got into an argument, and he threatened to release sex tapes from their hotel nights. Jane said that KK intervened and told her that the pair needed to take their space. Jane said that she didn't talk to Diddy for about a month after, and she felt really at peace. Jane testified that in February of 2024, she texted Diddy because she just missed him so dearly. Jane said that Diddy responded to that message by saying, "Show me them pretty teeth." The ones he paid for, remember? Because he paid for veneers because he didn't like her smile. Anyways, and then the pair made plans to see each other for her birthday. Jane said although that she was reluctant at first, she agreed to meet Diddy in Miami for her birthday, and to no one's surprise, after a very nice dinner, Diddy wanted to have a hotel night. Diddy asked Jane if she wanted to meet with one of the entertainers that the two had previously met with named Dawn, and she agreed. When asked why she would agree to do that for her birthday trip, knowing she didn't want to, Jane said that's ultimately the outcome of all of our meetings, so I've just come to accept it. Jane stated in March of 2024, she accused Diddy of lying when he said he was going to spend time with his mother, and Diddy just recommended that the two peacefully split. Jane said that same exact month, HSI raided Diddy's homes to include hers because he was paying for it, and they left her a business card upon their departure. Jane said that the raid had her spooked, so at some point after that she hired her own lawyer, but guess what? Diddy pays for that lawyer. Still to this day. Do you know what else Jane said? Jane said that one night, Diddy accidentally used one of the male entertainers' phones to record video of the hotel nights, and that male entertainer found the video and threatened to release that footage. Jane said that the male entertainer asked for $10,000, but she told Diddy about it. Diddy intervened. That $10,000 was not paid, but guess what? That footage did get released. Jane said eventually, the pair learned that a media company bought that tape. In regard to the hotel footage, Jane said she was actually with Diddy in his Miami home when that CNN surveillance footage of Diddy assaulting Cassie released. Jane said they discussed the footage, and Diddy told her that was the only time he had ever been physical with Cassie. Jane also testified that Diddy told her that Cassie was a hitter, and Cassie was abusive, and Cassie had hit Diddy on multiple occasions. Jane testified about another altercation that she and Diddy had got into, which started with her hitting him and calling him a PDF file. Jane stated that she was able to escape briefly, but Diddy found her, and the pair began punching and kicking each other. Jane stated that as Diddy was holding her down, he had another woman on speaker phone, insulting and berating her as she's getting kicked and beat and held down. Jane said in response to that, she yelled that Diddy was assaulting her, and magically, he hung up the phone. She said she looked into the mirror after the attack, and she noticed 2 golf ball-sized whelps on her forehead, as well as a black eye forming. Do you know what happened after that, according to Jane? According to her, Diddy slapped her 3 times and told her to cover up her injuries and called another entertainer over for the night. Jane said that Diddy sent her anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 to cover the entertainer's costs as well as the damages to the room. Eventually, after that night, the pair lost touch, but Jane said that she and Diddy reconnected because she missed him terribly. Jane said Diddy accused her of cheating and told her that they were breaking up. Jane said that the last time she saw Diddy was the month prior to his arrest and in August of 2024 in his Miami home. Jane further confirmed that she hasn't filed any lawsuits against Diddy and she has no intention to do so. Jane's testimony took us into the 20th day of Diddy's trial on Tuesday, June 10th of 2025. Before continuing Jane's testimony for this day, remember, we still have defense's second motion for mistrial that remains pending from over the weekend. The government ultimately responded to that motion, and the court denied the motion for mistrial. What did I tell you? In its denial, the court actually commended Nicole Westmoreland on the phenomenal job that she did during the cross-examination of Brianna Bongalong and stated she actually had somewhat of a Perry Mason moment. The court stated that that was not grounds for a mistrial. The government couldn't have known that Ms. Bongalong was going to say anything differently, and it did not encourage her to perjure herself on the stand. After that ruling, the prosecution actually asked if it could recall Dr. Don Hughes, and the court denied that too. After these 2 matters were addressed, Jane resumes the stand, but this time for her cross-examination to begin. Cross-examination on behalf of the defense team was conducted by Diddy's defense attorney, Teny Geragos. Before we get into Jane's cross-examination testimony, let me just give you my thoughts on her direct. I think it's kind of hard because people in their minds have a perception of what a victim should look like, act like, be like, sound like, talk like, and portray themselves as. And I think by everything I've read and by most people's accounts, Jane isn't the stereotypical victim. I think that a lot of people were saying that they didn't really have any sympathy or empathy for her in the way that she portrayed herself. It seemed more like Jane was a willing participant in the eyes to these people than Cassie was. With all of your stereotypes out of your mind, let's just talk about her testimony. Jane corroborated a lot of the things that Cassie said. Jane's recountation and her recollection of these hotel nights are similar to Cassie's recollections of her freak-offs. Jane testified about multiple different performers over multiple different time periods throughout multiple different cities and states. I think that Jane came across rather credibly. And I think it's unfortunate that this is a conversation that we have to have, but we kind of have to have it. Let's see what happens during Teny's cross-examination of Jane, however. During cross-examination, Jane testified that she had met with defense several times, but stopped doing so in April of 2025, 1 month prior to the trial, and she didn't feel any sort of pressure from the defense team to continue meeting with them. When Teny asked Jane about her relationship with Diddy, Jane said that a lot of her decisions were made under intense emotional pressure and distress. She further stated that she resents Diddy for introducing her to this lifestyle. Jane testified that after hotel nights were over, she was actually really nurturing and loved to take care of Diddy because he was her baby. Jane stated that while she and Diddy was together, she believed that she was the only woman that Diddy was having hotel nights with, and she even looked through his phone a few times to confirm that. Jane testified that at the time she felt loved because this was an experience that she and Diddy were sharing and no one else was sharing it with Diddy, or so she thought. About her drug use while with Diddy, Jane testified that she didn't want to take ecstasy, but Diddy made her do it. Jane testified that while she was with Diddy, she felt like she had only reached about 10% of her earning potential. And also, during Jane's cross-examination, jurors were able to hear audio notes between her and Diddy after Turks and Caicos trip.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know. You think you silent treating me, and you think I'm gonna be nah. You'll have a rude awakening. You'll just have silence, and ain't nobody threatening you. And I ain't trying to go back and forth with no woman. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, I ain't got no time for no motherfucking games. Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you could be mad. I could have a spat. We could have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice. So either you go in the direction of like moving on and shit like that, or you like just like have me just keep moving. Ain't no threat. I'm just being clear. I can't do this shit with you every time you get upset.
Remember how I said during direct examination, Jane testified about Diddy bragging about having sex with someone for 48 hours straight, and I thought it was Carisha on the Carisha Please podcast? Well, Jane was directly asked during cross-examination, and she said she was really jealous of Young Miami because Diddy was very public with her in the way that he wasn't with Jane. In what turned out to be a rather tense exchange between Jane and Teny, Jane and Teny were talking about the different gifts that Diddy had gotten for other women, right? So then at one point, Teny asked Jane whether or not Diddy got her a Bottega bag. And she said kind of pointedly, like, okay, yeah, whatever, so what? After that point, Teny asked Jane how much a Bottega bag cost. And Jane responded, how much does my body cost? How much is my body worth? And that was just a little crazy. The court reminded her that she had to answer the questions that were posed of her, to which she responded like 1,500 to 5,000. But what Jane actually wanted was a Chanel bag. And Diddy had gotten some of his other girlfriend's Chanel bags, so she just wanted to know why she couldn't have a Chanel bag. When asked how much a Chanel bag cost, she said she didn't know. For research purposes, I think a Chanel bag is upwards of $10,000, and I think that's on the cheap end. Jane's cross-examination continued through the next day of trial, day 21, on Wednesday, June 11th of 2025. Prior to Jane continuing her cross-examination, AUSA Maureen Comey asked the court to consider removal of one of the jurors because she felt like that juror wasn't candid with the court. Defense attorney Alexandra Shapiro responded that this was a thinly veiled attempt on behalf of the government to rid themselves and the panel of a black juror. Judge Submarinian stated that he would respond to the request tomorrow. As I mentioned, Jane's testimony pretty much takes us through the entirety of this week. So instead of just telling you absolutely everything that she said, I'm going to try to summarize where I can. So in regards to her testimony on the 21st day of trial, June 11th, 2025, here's exactly what she said, or my summary of what she said. Jane said she found out at one point that Diddy was on a trip with another woman, and she convinced him to leave that trip early by threatening no longer to have hotel nights with him. Jane said as soon as Diddy came home early, she organized another hotel night for him as a reward and a present and a gift for him doing that. Again, Jane stated that she was really upset with Diddy because some of his other girlfriends were allowed to be public about him and post him on social media. But whenever she did so, she was demanded and commanded to delete the posts. Trial day 21 concluded with Jane on the stand but returning for trial day 22, which was Thursday, June 12th of 2025. Prior to Jane resuming the stand, defense attorney Marc Agnifilo informed the court about defense's continuing objection to allowing Jane to testify under the pseudonym Jane. He stated that this was a public trial and people should be forced to identify themselves when testifying. The court noted defense's continuing objection and stated that its prior ruling still stands. After addressing defense's continuing objection, Jane resumed the stand for continued cross-examination. Jane stated that when Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy went public, Diddy actually apologized to her because he said he didn't know how she felt about it. Jane testified that in January of 2024, her and Diddy flew on a private jet with another rapper who was actually really close to Diddy, but that rapper was not named publicly. Jane stated that when they all got to a hotel room, that rapper told her that he thought Jane was beautiful and he always wanted to have sex with her. When asked by Teny, Jane confirmed for the jurors that she did show her breasts to the entire party inside of that hotel because it was just in the moment. At some point, I think Jane even testified that the rapper and his partner started having sex in front of everyone at the party. Jane also stated that the rapper asked if Jane knew of anyone who was involved in that lifestyle, and Jane thought it was because they probably suspected that her and Diddy were involved. Either that or Diddy told them. Regardless, Jane gave them some referrals and recommendations about some escorts that they could contact. After multiple days of continued cross-examination, Jane's cross-examination actually finally ends right before the lunch hour on this day. Before we get into anything else and what happened, let me tell you my thoughts on Jane's cross-examination. By all accounts, by people that I've seen who were actually inside of the trial and who had seen the testimony and everything, it didn't seem like Teny really got off to the best start. It seemed like Teny got off to a slow start and she didn't really do a really great job on her cross-examination of Jane during the first day. But by all accounts, Teny picked right back up and she was at it. And she did really, really wonderfully the second day. And going into the third day, I think this lasted 3 days or 2.5. Regardless, I think that Teny made Jane look less sympathetic. I think that Teny made Jane look combative, argumentative. You know, there were some questions that Teny asked Jane, and I think her responses to those questions just didn't make her look like the stereotypical victim that we talked about earlier. If Teny's job and her goal was to discredit Jane and make her look like she wasn't a victim, but instead a willing participant in all of this, I think mission accomplished. This is one of the better cross-examinations that we've seen Teny do throughout Diddy's trial, but let's just see what happens after this. After the lunch break, and after Teny concludes her cross-examination of Jane, AUSA Marine Comey does a brief redirect. During redirect, and again I'm just summarizing, there were multiple questions posed to Jane about her trauma surrounding hotel nights and about how she didn't want to continue her participation in them. After that brief redirect, the jurors were actually dismissed for the day. Trial day 23 continues on Friday, June 13th of 2025. The morning began with whether or not they should release the black juror that they were talking about releasing yesterday. The court heard more argument from both sides, and it ultimately determined that if it were going to make a decision about releasing the juror, it would do so at the end of the day. So this day just continued with regular old testimony. The government then called their 29th witness to the stand, HSI agent Andre LaMon. AUSA Meredith Foster did the direct examination on behalf of the government. During his brief direct examination, HSI agent LaMon just confirmed that he was one of the agents who assisted in the raid of Diddy's home in March 2024 in Los Angeles. Through this witness, the jurors saw multiple photos of ammunition and guns that were recovered inside of Diddy's LA home. During cross-examination, and it was also brief, but conducted by lead defense attorney Marc Agnifilo, Marc was able to get through this witness that the ammunition and the weapons were only found in the security room of Diddy's home. As I state about multiple other witnesses, HSI agent LaMon just seems to be a foundational witness. Through him, the government was able to show more photos of what was recovered in Diddy's LA home during the March 2024 raid. As far as cross-examination is concerned, if you couldn't tell by the way I said it, I'm just trying to figure out where Marc is going. It doesn't matter if it were found in the security room, the kitchen, the bathroom, the closet. It doesn't really matter. It was found in his home. So I don't really think that made any headway. But again, this is a short witness. It's just a foundational witness. So there wasn't really much to attack or discredit here. After HSI agent Andre LaMon got off the stand, the court took a brief break, and you wouldn't even believe who showed up during that break. KANYE, Omari, West. Do you remember how Jane testified that Diddy and her took a private jet with a close rapper friend of Diddy's, and that rapper friend and his partner were having sex in front of a party in a hotel room early in 2024? Remember that? There was a lot of speculation that Ye was the rapper, so it's kind of unsurprising that he showed up in support of Diddy. Because of his status, KANYE really couldn't stay too long. They put him in the overflow room because he had too much of an impact and he would cause such a disturbance to the proceedings. He stayed for about 40 minutes and he ultimately left. Do you know what else happened during the break? The prosecution decided to address Diddy's nodding with the court. AUSA Marine Comey told the court that Diddy was nodding emphatically during the cross-examination of HSI agent Andre LaMon. AUSA Comey stated that she wasn't asking for a curative instruction, nor was she asking for Diddy to be removed from the courtroom, but instead she was just asking the court to continue its admonishment and let Diddy know that it was inappropriate. The court did that, and do you know how Diddy responded to the court's admonishment? By nodding some more. I mean, I don't know if you guys find that as funny as I find it, but I think it's a power move. That the court is telling you that your nodding is out of control and that you respond to the court by nodding even further. Also, brief side note, I've noticed that I keep calling this man Agent Lemon and his last name is LaMon. So sorry for that. Agent Andre LaMon. After conclusion of the break, after KANYE leaves, and after addressing Diddy's nodding, the government calls their 30th witness to the stand, Johnathan Perez. It's important to note that Johnathan was also granted immunity and testified under an immunity order after he invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination before the jury returned to the courtroom. For reference, and in case you're keeping track, Johnathan is actually the fourth witness in Diddy's trial so far to testify under an immunity order. The other three witnesses who testified under an immunity order were Diddy's former personal assistant, George Kaplan, Brianna Bondalong, and the former security guard from the hotel, Eddie Garcia. AUSA Madison Smyser conducted the direct examination on behalf of the government here. During direct examination, Johnathan stated he worked for Diddy from December 2021 to September 2024. His starting salary was $85,000, but he later moved on to earn $100,000. Johnathan stated it was typical for him to work 12-hour days from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Johnathan stated that KK advised him about setting up king nights for Diddy. And Johnathan understood that to mean that Diddy was just having some private alone time in a hotel with the female companion. Johnathan testified that he would further get 2 full days of notice to set up these king nights for Diddy. Johnathan stated that he worked during the day, and throughout the entirety of his employment with Diddy, he only set up about 5 different king nights. Johnathan stated that some of the supplies needed for king nights were food, liquor, lubricant, and honey. In clarification about why honey was necessary, Johnathan stated that he understood that it enhanced a male's libido. Johnathan stated that sometimes he would also go to adult stores to purchase adult outfits and high heels for Diddy. Johnathan stated that he would pay for these items with the company card or with cash that he would receive from the security guards. Johnathan stated that he was expected to clean up the hotel rooms after king nights, and they were always in a bit of disarray. When asked to clarify, Johnathan merely said it was lots of sheets and lots of towels and lots of oil. Johnathan stated that after king nights, Diddy staff would arrange a massage, an IV drip, and lots of meals for Diddy. Johnathan stated that Diddy staff found sexually explicit videos of Jane on an iPad of Diddy's. Johnathan stated that upon this discovery, he told KK and Diddy, but Diddy seemed rather shocked that Johnathan was telling him. Johnathan stated that 6 months had passed after him telling KK and Diddy, and KK re-brought it up to ask him how on earth he discovered this, to which Johnathan explained. Apparently, KK was recording that phone call and Johnathan had no idea. Jurors then heard recordings of the phone call that Johnathan and KK had. Johnathan was then shown photos of a Gucci pouch, and he said it belonged to Diddy, and it was usually filled with money and drugs. Johnathan testified that he purchased drugs for Diddy on a handful of occasions. Johnathan stated that the drugs that he purchased for Diddy were Xanax, cocaine, and Molly. Johnathan stated that he would pay for the drugs in cash that he either received from Diddy's security personnel, the Gucci pouch, or a top drawer somewhere in Diddy's home. Johnathan testified that he got a phone call from Diddy on June 18th of 2024 when Diddy and Jane were involved in an argument. Johnathan stated that during the phone call, Diddy had him confirm that there were no other women present with him during the trip that Diddy took the week prior. Johnathan stated that he confirmed that, and the call ended. Johnathan stated that the last time he talked to Diddy was when Diddy was arrested, and when asked how he felt about Diddy, he said, "I feel great about him, the exact same way I felt about him during my employment with him." Johnathan's testimony on direct examination was pretty credible. I think Johnathan just corroborates more that this was an enterprise, this was a business. Diddy was using funds from his business to further purchase and fund his illicit lifestyle. Johnathan needed that immunity order. Why? Because he said, yeah, I was purchasing drugs on behalf of my employer. That's why he asked for it. I think Johnathan seemed really sturdy. He seemed really good. He seemed really credible, but let's see what happens on cross-examination. The cross-examination of Johnathan was handled by Diddy's defense attorney, Brian Steele. During cross-examination, Johnathan testified that he had respect for Diddy, and he set up king nights for Diddy as part of his personal tasks for Diddy and not part of his employment with Diddy. During cross-examination, Johnathan further confirmed that Jane seemed like a willing participant to Diddy's king nights, hotel nights, freak-offs, whatever name we go by. When asked to make an estimation, Johnathan stated that he spent maybe about 1% of his employment setting up king nights for Diddy. Johnathan further stated that Diddy never told him not to discuss these king nights with anyone. Johnathan further stated that he didn't know if all of Diddy's personal items were paid through company funds or how they were paid. And then also, during cross-examination, jurors were able to see different text messages between Johnathan and Jane setting up king nights for Diddy. Let's talk about the skill that Brian Steele continues to exhibit during his cross-examination of these witnesses. He got in, he got to the point, and he got out. How much of your time was spent setting up these king nights for Diddy? About 1% out of 100. Okay, well, do you know exactly where all of the king nights were paid through? Like what funds they were paid through? No, I don't. I don't know if they were all paid through the company funds or otherwise. He was able to just get to the points that matter. Okay, he was able to go through and attack the points that matter. I think that this was really important. I think that Brian Steele continues to do a phenomenal job in defense of Diddy. He's one of the best defense attorneys that Diddy has on that team. And his cross-examination is artful, it's skillful, it's powerful, it's compelling, it's really righteous. And he's almost always, doing a phenomenal job. After Johnathan's testimony, the jurors were actually dismissed for the day and were set to return the following Monday, June 16th of 2025. Please remember that next Thursday is Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday, so court will not be in session for that day. Regardless, next video, we'll talk about what happens during Diddy's full 6th week of trial. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.